ReefDudes is sponsored by Ecotech Marine and Bulk Reef Supply. Today we're going to talk about upgrading or migrating your reef tank. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. So as you guys might be aware, I am soon swapping out this tank for something a little more reasonably sized for my office. I love this big wide tank. However, it is wall to wall and it makes my tiny office excessively humid. And so I decided to do something a little more reasonable. So I've already started the process. If we take a little look inside, you can see I've already taken out a bunch of the rock that lives inside the tank. Now, normally if you're upgrading a tank, you would just take your current rock and fish and water and move it into the new tank. You know, you're gonna have most of your bacteria, everything's gonna be cycled, and you're gonna be pretty happy. You'll likely only experience a bit of a mini cycle. Now in my case, I wanna rescape it. I wanna change things up. And if you've been paying attention to the channel for a while, you see some of my videos a while ago where I had a bit of a battle of vermitid snails. And we used the calcium carbonate powder and the bumblebee snails. Now that did a fantastic job and it killed off most of them, but the bumblebee snails, the calcium carbonate, kind of chokes them out, but there's still little tubes all over the rocks. And I want to get rid of those tubes, as well as, you know, you look in here, I got a couple big monsters, Aptasia. These are all things that I want to rid and not transfer into the new tank. So, as you can see how barren it is now, I started pulling some of the rock and actually started pressure washing it. Now, of course, this is going to kill off the good bacteria. However, it's also going to kill off and break off any of the vermitid snails and the Aptasia and everything else. Now, to make sure everything is fully dead and, you know, semi-sterile, we're going to leave this outside and let it dry out for a few days. And that's going to make sure everything is kind of dead. And on top of that, we're going to rescape it all, we're going to cement it and all this stuff, and we're going to have to pre-cycle that rock. So that's a big kind of caveat here. Now you might be asking yourself, if I'm losing all this rock, how am I going to cycle my new tank? Well, on top of bottle bacteria, I think I'm actually going to reuse my sand. Now the sand is a crazy amount of surface area. Now there is some bristleworms in the sand, but about that's the only real pest that I got to worry about. And I think reusing the sand is going to make a massive difference. Now on top of that, I also picked up a big box of Cyperax. Now I have about 3 liters of this living in the water box sump for a few weeks now. Now this is crazy amounts of surface area, and using that to help seed the new tank is also going to make a massive difference and bring in some of the goodness from the new tank. Now a few other things, I did remove the frag rack from the sump, and you kind of see that's living in there now. And that freed up the XR15, so I did throw that onto my little nano reef, but we will do an update on that one on a future week. And for now, I mainly wanted to talk about the tank. So I've been going through my head, you know, what do I want to reuse? I've been kind of back and forth, and if I do a few XR15s on it, or if I do 2 XR30s instead, just to kind of have more minimalistic above the tank. This tank is 6.5, 7 feet. And I'm going to go with a 4-foot tank for the replacement, so it's going to be, you know, roughly half the wall, not the whole wall. Aside from that, I think so far I'm going to reuse all my MP40s because I love those pumps. And I have 2 return pumps currently, an M1 and M2. I think I'm probably just going to use one of those for now, since I have a single return pump on it. And probably reuse the skimmer and some other jazz. So I think gear-wise, I'm for the most part pretty set. And again, I'll probably reuse the controllers and dosers and heaters and a lot of that jazz. But I've still been kind of going through the last few days, is racking my mind of what else I need. Now for media, if you never use it, Cyperax is kind of a glass-based media, and it has crazy amounts of surface area, super absorbent. So there's 3 liters living in the sump here, should add a ton of goodness to the new tank. That coupled with some of the media that's in the bottom that's been in here for years will be really good stuff to add in. Now to clean up the rock, actually I did start doing the pressure washing. And on top of that, it still had some of those pesky little vermitid snails. So I've been using side cutters to kind of cut it and break them off of the rock, which really has made a big difference. Now having this rock living outside for 4 or 5 days are obviously dead, but we still do have a few skeletons, so just kind of poking them and breaking them off with this is just kind of get rid of the pokey things for later. And I of course have been playing with doing some different funky kind of rock structures. Now it was super windy the other day and some of them kind of break off, so I do gotta do a little more level on this one. I ordered some Nias Reef Cement and Super Glue, which was a really cool thing I saw on West Coast Reefers channel. And also some Marco E400 cement, and it's going to be about a bit of a mix of the two to start building some funky structures. And I can play with it, make some weird shapes, and then kind of glue it together afterwards and get some of those really funky overhangs. Now, once that shows up, I'm still waiting a few more days, but I'm probably going to make a bit of a cardboard mock tank. and build out some really funky structures and make my aquascape. And then I'm going to want to pre-cycle it. Now, because I have my fish from my current tank, that's going to move into the new tank. And because I lost the rock bacteria, it's going to be coming from the Cyperax and the sand. And if I can, I'm going to build a cool scape, put it into a bit of like a Rubbermaid or big container, and pre-cycle it with some bacteria for a couple weeks just to fully kind of seed it and, you know, make sure the tank's nice and stable and ready to rehome my fish. And we take into consideration the copious amounts of bacteria I'm going to add, coupled with reusing my current live sand, which has so much surface area. Pre-cycling the rocks, all the Cyperax that's living in my water box sump, it should be pretty good to go. I still expect a bit of a mini cycle, which is why I'm going to add a bunch of different bacteria strains on top of it to prevent any ammonia, but I expect to be relatively short. And that's my current plan. I think it's going to work. I've upgraded many tanks in the past. Now, usually I don't really kill off my live rock. When I do it, I reuse it, which does make things a lot easier. But I do tend to go with brand new live sand or dry sand. In this case, I'm going to reuse the sand. Obviously, I'm going to vacuum it a few times first to make sure get rid of a lot of the junk out of it so I don't bring that kitty litter into the new tank. But I think this will work because sand has so much surface area. But a few kind of considerations. And yeah, hopefully gives you guys a bit of direction on when you're doing it. Now, setting up a new tank in a new location and I can move stuff in at a leisurely pace, that'd be really easy. But putting the tank in the exact same spot definitely make things a bit tricky. A couple other considerations. I'm going to need to put the fish in a temporary container and make sure they're okay for a bit. So I'm probably going to pick up a couple of those kind of 4-foot plastic bins. I'll move, you know, the coral rock, whatever's going in the fish in there, with a heater, a pump, and make sure that they're good for, you know, the transition period. And hopefully, if I get my escape all figured out, I can pre-cycle that, reuse the rock, reuse the Cyperax and all the other media, and bring all that beneficial bacteria into the tank and have a very minimal cycle. So that's kind of my current process, thoughts, plans. If you guys have done something similar and you got any pro tips, let us know in the comments below. If you're new, hopefully this helps you. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button. And otherwise, make sure you guys subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next video as we go to the next stage of aquascaping, cycling, and prepping for the tank transition.